Place maintenant à l'invité d'Au cœur de l'info. Retour ce soir sur l'affaire Epstein et ses conséquences encore incalculables.
The most high-profile rivalry in tech is heating up in 2026 as both OpenAI and Anthropic race ahead on what are poised to be historic IPOs. These AI giants are trying to create the fastest, smartest, and best models, spending billions and then raising billions from investors along the way. They compete on almost every level. We've seen some signals that it's anything but friendly competition. The latest signal, a high-profile spat over advertising. In January, OpenAI began unveiling plans to introduce ads for free users and ChatGPT Go subscribers in the United States, an opportunity to pull in crucial revenue as that company faces down $1.4 trillion in AI build-out commitments. OpenAI's CFO Sarah Fryer stressing to CNBC that the ads would not influence the responses given to users.
North Star is the model always gives you the best answer, not the paid-for answer. That has to remain goal one. We don't share your conversations with advertisers. We don't sell your data to advertisers.
Meanwhile, Anthropic announcing in no uncertain terms that its own flagship chatbot Claude would remain ad-free. It went a step further, spending millions on Super Bowl ads that never mention OpenAI but take clear aim at the rival lab.
But confidence isn't just built in the gym. Try Step Boost Max, the insoles that add 1 vertical inch of height.
The tensions between the United States and Iran refuse to die down. Despite the insistence on dialogue, threats and counter-threats continue unabated. In the latest, Iran has said that it will sink the American warship after Donald Trump announced that there is another aircraft carrier strike group that is headed to the region. The script, of course, seems familiar to the days and events leading up to the 12-day war in June. The question is obviously this: will Trump carry out another attack on Iran, or will he pull back as he did just a few weeks ago? Our next report tells you more.
American troops are ready for strike. Iranian missiles are locked and loaded. One nod from Washington can trigger a regional war. U.S. President Trump has announced that a second aircraft carrier will soon head to West Asia, escalating military pressure on Iran, even as negotiations continue over Tehran's nuclear program.
We have to make a deal, otherwise it's going to be very traumatic. Very traumatic. I don't want that to happen, but we have to make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time, and they got Midnight Hammer instead. And this will be very traumatic for Iran if they don't make a deal. I guess over the next month, something like that. Yeah, it shouldn't take, I mean, it should happen quickly. They should agree very quickly.
Trump has given Iran a one-month deadline to strike a deal. If it doesn't, Trump warns a traumatic ordeal would await Tehran. Trump has also not ruled out a regime change. He says a change of government in Iran would be the best thing that could happen. The remark has sharpened the stakes. In recent weeks, Trump has indicated that nuclear restrictions alone may not be sufficient, suggesting Washington is seeking broader concessions. Trump's comments have met a sharp rebuke. A senior Iranian official, Ibrahim Rezaiai, slammed Trump's decision to dispatch a second aircraft carrier. He says Iran had one target to sink before. Now it has two. Iran has warned U.S. that any attack would be met with a stern response. Tehran says it is better prepared than last year and will hit back at American bases in West Asia if attacked. About 40,000 American troops are deployed in its bases in Jordan, Qatar, Iraq, and Bahrain. As tensions escalate, the region sits on a powder keg, where any minor provocation could unleash an all-out war. For now, both sides seem keen to engage in more talks. Reports suggest the next round of talks could be held as early as February 17th, but a familiar script played out last year. Trump set a 2-month deadline for Iran to strike a deal. The talks collapsed after 5 rounds, leading to the 12-day war in June last year. This time, too, Trump has given Iran a 1-month deadline. Simultaneously, U.S. has ramped up its military deployment in the region. Its Patriot missiles have been loaded in launchers in U.S. biggest Al-Udeid air base in Qatar. While talks have progressed, both sides seem unwilling to make any concessions. Does a familiar fate then await Tehran? Is this a prelude to another conflict in West Asia? The rhetoric is rising. Threats are flying. One wrong move, one miscalculation can ignite a devastating war.
En place à l'analyse de David Delos maintenant. Merci d'être là, David. Le discours de Marco Rubio tranche avec les attaques lancées l'an dernier par J.D. Vance, le vice-président américain, on s'en souvient encore.
Effectivement, oui, mais en tout cas, il faut quand même le dire, il aurait été indélicat de la part du secrétaire d'État américain de se lancer dans un nouveau réquisitoire contre les valeurs européennes. Il était urgent d'apaiser les tensions, de soulager les partenaires de l'Amérique, d'essayer de panser les plaies et de réparer une relation transatlantique très abîmée. À première vue, mission accomplie donc pour Marco Rubio. Son intervention a même été applaudie. Le secrétaire d'État a tendu la main aux pays du vieux continent en assurant que les États-Unis et l'Europe sont faits pour être ensemble. Il a rappelé que le destin de l'Europe ne sera jamais sans rapport avec celui des États-Unis. Ce que veut Washington, selon lui, c'est revitaliser le lien avec une Europe forte. Il a même rappelé, il s'est souvenu d'ailleurs, que son pays sera toujours un enfant de l'Europe. Retour de mémoire plutôt bienvenu, et c'est bien beau, mais on reste quand même dans un très très bel exercice de diplomatie. Sur le fond, le discours n'est pas beaucoup plus rassurant que celui de J.D. Vance il y a tout juste un an.
Quels sont les éléments négatifs que vous relevez?
Alors déjà, le fait que Marco Rubio demande aux dirigeants européens de se ranger derrière la bannière de Donald Trump. On va quand même rappeler qu'on parle d'un président américain qui condamne l'Europe à un effacement civilisationnel. Pas de quoi vraiment donner envie de se ranger derrière la vision d'un homme qui serait, si on en croit le rapport annuel de cette conférence de Munich, le principal acteur du désordre mondial. On va rappeler que lorsque Marco Rubio dit que les États-Unis de Donald Trump sont prêts à mener la restauration de l'ordre mondial, ce sont des mots qui sont prononcés lors d'un événement qui a constaté que c'est son propre patron qui, ces derniers mois, a été le principal vecteur de chaos. On va rappeler les mots du rapport annuel de cette conférence de Munich, un document intitulé « Under Destruction ». en cours de destruction, en bon français. Le monde est entré dans une ère de politique destructrice. L'ordre international est ravagé à coups de boulets de démolition. La faute à qui? La faute à Donald Trump, dont la politique de démolition promet de briser l'inertie institutionnelle. Alors si vous ajoutez à ça le fait que Marco Rubio a repris la rhétorique trumpienne sur la menace que représente l'immigration, venant de la part d'un fils d'immigré cubain, ça pose quand même un tout petit peu question. Et puis deux éléments qui peuvent être choquants. Marco Rubio a estimé que l'Europe peut survivre. C'est le mot qu'il a utilisé. Alors les pays européens, certes, traversent quelques difficultés, mais est-ce qu'ils en sont au point de subsister, de se maintenir en vie? Je pose la question. Deuxième chose, quand le secrétaire d'État américain dit que les États-Unis veulent renouveler la plus grande civilisation de l'histoire, pas sûr qu'en Asie ou qu'en Afrique, on soit totalement d'accord avec ce que cette réflexion suggère.
Et Marco Rubio qui a aussi évoqué le dossier de la guerre en Ukraine. David qui a d'ailleurs laissé entendre, dit clairement que le président russe ne manifestait pas de volonté de mettre un terme à cette guerre qu'il a lui-même déclenchée.
Effectivement, ouais. Et qu'est-ce que ça induit ça? À minima, un aveu d'impuissance. Washington a beau faire pression pour un accord de paix rapide, rien n'y fait. Alors moi je me souviens d'un certain Donald Trump qui avait juré qu'il mettrait fin à ce conflit en 24 heures. Il parlait d'une négociation facile, mais ça, c'était avant, quand il était candidat à sa réélection. Aujourd'hui, le patron de la Maison-Blanche met la pression sur l'Ukraine. Il a exhorté le président Zelensky, je le cite, à se bouger pour parvenir à un accord. Je note au passage que ce sont des mots qu'il évite d'utiliser avec un certain Vladimir Poutine. Marco Rubio, lui, ne sera plus à Munich quand le président Zelensky recevra le prix Ewald von Kleist. C'est un prix qui récompense les contributions exceptionnelles à la paix. En revanche, en début de semaine prochaine, le secrétaire d'État américain sera bien en Hongrie, pays dirigé par l'allié de droite Viktor Orban, un président qui s'oppose à toute aide à Kiev et qui préfère garder un canal ouvert avec le Kremlin. Il y a des déplacements et des actes qui sont plus éloquents que certains discours.
Merci beaucoup David, merci pour cette analyse.
This man needs very little introduction, and nor does that. Matt, just how does that feel?
Pretty heavy, to be honest. It's a lot heavier than I thought it would be, but I think the overriding feeling is just like, I can't actually describe it. It's unlike anything I've ever had before. I've been lucky enough to win world championships and things like that, and winning this just blows them all out of the water. You probably saw yesterday on the footage, I kind of couldn't control my emotion at the bottom. It just meant absolutely everything to me.
Bossed it. You bossed that.
So for me, a lot of the difference is mentality and how I work. I do a lot of work with psychologists, like sports psychologists as well as clinical psychologists. So that they've made a massive difference in how I approach races, how consistent I can be, and I'd say that's probably one of the biggest differences. I've got a great team around me that deal with the equipment and the lines and the sliding things. But I think one of the things that makes the biggest difference is that the top 2 inches, you could say.
4 track records.
Yeah.
Do you know what you have to do? Right, Matt might not know this. You set 4 track records. Yeah. Do you know what you've got to do for people who prepared that track?
Yeah, I've got to buy a lot of beer.
Yeah.
تحدث Le niveau de l'eau tellement haut menace de submerger la digue à la Réole en Gironde. Une situation totalement inédite, même pour ses habitants, habitués aux inondations.
C'est impressionnant, bien sûr, mais bon, tous ceux qui habitent sur les quais, on est sortis par derrière.
Les équipes de surveillance des crues multiplient les vérifications en espérant que le pire pourra être évité.
On mesure.
La Gironde en vigilance rouge pour les crues, tout comme le Lot-et-Garonne. 14 autres départements sont eux en alerte orange. Tous les records sont battus. Jamais autant de tronçons de rivières n'avaient été en vigilance sur une telle durée. Une crue généralisée, car les sols saturés d'eau n'arrivent plus à absorber les moindres pluies qui s'abattent. Comme ici, à Marmande, dans le Lot-et-Garonne. L'eau est à plus de 10 mètres de haut. 900 personnes ont été évacuées dans le département. Parfois, avec les moyens du bord comme ils le peuvent. Tous redoutent de constater les dégâts dans leur maison.
Il y a eu beaucoup de travaux de fait et tout ça, donc c'est vrai que ça fait toujours mal au cœur de voir tout ça, mais bon, malheureusement on n'y a pas le choix. On est impuissant face à ça.
On a beau surélever les meubles, ça va y aller quand même, quoi. Il n'y a rien à faire.
Des crues un peu partout sur la façade atlantique, ici dans les Deux-Sèvres. Les protections au pas des portes risquent de ne pas suffire à empêcher la montée des eaux dans les maisons.
C'est un peu inquiétant, même les poubelles et tout, là, c'est désagréable. Hein. On espère que ça ne va pas rentrer dans la maison, c'est tout ce que je demande.
La situation va rester difficile encore tout le week-end. De nouvelles pluies sont attendues dès demain depuis la Bretagne, avant de balayer tout l'ouest du pays.
Every day I think, you've survived another day.
Not an awful lot of people choose to live on the side of a road in a caravan or a van. Most of them have been forced into it for one way or another.
I think your child dying is probably about the worst thing that can happen to you.
A lot of those are parked up by the side of the road. That can cause some community tensions.
It's just not acceptable. None of this is acceptable.
Anybody that says, oh, you shouldn't be living like that, okay, well, buy us a nice piece of land or donate us a house or shut your mouth.
These wide open fields are meant to be the attraction, but it's not the view that's catching people's eye. Vans line this Bristol beauty spot and their numbers are growing. The Downs is a popular place to visit, except these visitors never left. But why? These are the van dwellers. It's a damp day in Bristol, and looking down this road, the view seems endless. For months now, these mobile vehicles have become very much fixed. Some we find in a state of disrepair. This area in Bristol is one of many areas now across the country where people are actually living inside vans, calling the curbside their home. There are about 600 people who are now living inside vans here in Bristol, and the numbers have got so big, the council's now taking legal action against them. But why, you might ask, are they living inside vans? Well, for some, it's a lifestyle choice, but for others, it's a symptom of a national housing shortage. As we head towards the centre of town, the view is unchanged. Hundreds of vans and caravans are stationed across this city, now dubbed the vehicle-dwelling capital of the UK. Wherever you are, these homes are permanent. Mattresses, bikes and solar panels a frequent sight. 26-year-old Jack has lived on the Downs for about a year. A former education worker, this caravan became home.
The main thing for me was sort of leaving my job and then having to leave my accommodation where I was renting. And this was sort of the only thing I could afford going into that. I would have been 25 when that was, but I didn't have a wealth of savings built up because I'd just sort of been renting, and all my money would pretty much go to that and food. I just needed somewhere to stay. I mean, the alternative to buying this would have been just sort of being homeless around the United Kingdom. If you think about it, I'm kind of on the ladder now. I actually have something I own, I have something I can improve.
A short walk down the road is Jack's dad. His van doors are open despite the incoming rain. Inside, Dave prepares roast lamb, a big dish quite unexpected in such a small setting. The power required to cook it, we spot, is carefully monitored.
I bought my first van with a view to converting it into a weekend camper that I could go away for weekends, and then work sort of dried up, and I couldn't afford to pay the rent, so I ended up moving into that van before it was even converted, in fact.
So for you, you moved into a van because of housing costs?
It's not just the rent, it's the rent, the council tax, all the bills and the standing charges, and they just seem to just increase dramatically. I didn't have any choice but to move out. Not an awful lot of people choose to live on the side of a road in a caravan or a van for fun. Most of them have been forced into it one way or another.
The numbers of vans in Bristol are counted twice a year, and numbers have quadrupled since 2019. And curbside living specifically in the last 6 months has dramatically increased, with vehicles at 107 different locations. Describe the scale of the problem here.
So we've got over 600 lived-in vehicles in Bristol.
And it's this that's forced the council to act.
We think that the rise in vehicle dwelling is absolutely being driven by the housing crisis here in Bristol and elsewhere across the country. We found that people were using parts of the Downs as a kind of makeshift toilet. And obviously that's completely unacceptable. We couldn't allow that to happen. So we've done a few things in response to that. First of all, obviously, we've cleaned the place up, made sure that it's safe, and we're going to court now to bring in an injunction which would prevent people from parking up and living on the roadside up on the Downs.
This was a process started at the end of last year. We saw council enforcement staff knocking on the vehicles to say, you have to leave. Plastic wallets stuck to doors, their message hard to miss. And this is one of the sites their inhabitants could move to. An old gasworks, its concrete zones now fenced off.
We're setting up what we call meanwhile sites. This is one of them. We're going to be laying out some pitches on here and providing some basic facilities so that people can move away from the side of the road onto a safe, secure site where they've got some of the basic amenities that they need.
Do you have space on these sites for all 600 odd van dwellers?
Not for everybody, no.
It means everyone inside these vans faces eviction, but possibly without somewhere to go.
It's very difficult. I don't know where I'd go if I got moved on.
The homelessness charity Crisis says that 40% of people who've recently been homeless had slept in a car, van or boat at some point during that time. But there's remarkably little known about how many people are living in vans specifically because of reasons like the shortage of affordable housing. And there are other areas of the country like Falmouth in the southwest or Glastonbury in Somerset that are seeing these van encampments cropping up. Come with us to Brighton, 165 miles away. This coastal city is also seeing growing numbers of vans and caravans. We come to the edge of South Downs National Park.
This is my diesel eater. Usually there's a top over it, but I took it off so I can monitor the diesel.
Steve, a retired bus and truck driver, demonstrates how he stays warm. This tiny space is home. A space he shares with his companion, rescue dog Scooby.
I collect rainwater in there. When it rains, that fills up, so I use that for, washing the plates and everything. Like I collect rainwater here because the rain runs off here as well. So I collect rainwater as much as possible. Keep my rubbish clean and tidy in there. And take the rubbish down to the recycling bin whenever we need to. Come on, say hello.
He's got Scooby for company, but with arthritis in both knees, living like this is getting harder.
Every day I think, you've survived another day. So yeah, if you can try and have a good day, it's fantastic. If you try and have a good day.
I noticed you used the word survive. Are you surviving?
I mean, everybody's surviving really, aren't they? You know, everybody survives day by day.
Are you happy?
As happy as you could be in a situation like this.
And Steve isn't alone here. Next door, we hear dogs alongside the noise of the road. Inside, Steve's friend, Ellen. A grandmother burning logs to keep herself warm. On the far side, her dog watches over her. Her bed takes up most of the space. Her reason for living like this is hard to hear.
My child died a few years ago and I became very unwell, and I just needed to be somewhere out of things to try and deal with my bereavement, which I've done for several years, but now I'm trying to get back into a house. But because of the housing shortage and the demands that the estate agents put on you, I found it incredibly difficult. So I feel like the people who live in vehicles, we're part of the homeless problem. I think your child dying is probably about the worst that can possibly thing that can happen to you. So a lot of people who live like me have had mental issues due to the stresses of their life.
The pair have been trying to get into a house together for over a year now. Their savings, though, are simply not enough.
I couldn't get on the mortgage because I never had enough money to do that. The barrier is they want a certain amount of income. And like the one place we went to, they were asking for £40,000 a year income. Well, both of us combined with our pensions, we don't make that. We can't make that threshold.
And without this money, their way out is hard to see. Ellen and Steve are both living in a van, but for them there's just no alternative. They simply can't get a house. Between 75 and 100 people are living like this here in Brighton, and many of them for the same reasons. But in some cases, it's causing conflict. A few miles away, some of these vehicles have been here for months. This one, fitted with a tarpaulin to create its own relative privacy. Its huge solar panels are instantly noticeable. Even our cameras will be captured on camera. And if that caravan is visible, this one is audible. The quiet street interrupted by its generator's steady, rhythmic hum. So how are you feeling about these vans being on the side of the road?
Well, we're upset and concerned. As you can probably hear, this one's got a generator running all day and most of the night.
Neil's home overlooks these vehicles. He's heading a local action group to get them moved on.
I've found over the last week there's been 2 separate occasions where I've found bags on the football pitch full of human excrement, and without going into too much details, it's undoubtedly human excrement. This, I don't know if this is a school fence for a primary school. My neighbours up here have seen the van inhabitants urinating up against the fence. Primary school. So it's just not acceptable. None of this is acceptable.
We don't know if any of the van dwellers are responsible for the waste Neil describes, but it's clear the mere presence of the vehicles is causing controversy.
The residents here are very tolerant, but you know, everyone has their breaking point.
A point, it seems, now reached by everyone.
I would suggest to him that maybe he actually bothered to talk to us as real human beings and actually got to understand our position. I would say that most of the people who live like me don't really want to upset anybody. We're trying really hard not to do that.
I've worked all of my life from the age of 12 years old, so I've never asked for anything from the government. Now I've got my pension and that's it. So, you know, anybody that says, oh, you shouldn't be living like that, okay, well, you know, like I said, get your checkbook out write a nice check, buy us a nice piece of land, or donate us a house, or shut your mouth. Simple as that.
It's okay, Monty. He's a good boy.
Except the path facing Ellen and Steve is anything but. Not quite homeless, but certainly houseless. Home to some, hated by others, these small lodgings are divisive. And with divisive, we found, comes defiance.
Et on accueille tout de suite Fabien Randan. Bonjour à vous. Vous êtes journaliste culture média chez 20 minutes. Merci de prendre quelques instants pour répondre à nos questions. Théodora repart donc avec 4 trophées. Elle le mérite, le titre de Boss Lady?
Ah bah oui, assurément, elle mérite le titre de Boss Lady, puisque remporter 4 trophées au cours d'une même cérémonie des Victoires de la musique, c'est déjà arrivé, mais ça arrive quand même rarement. Et là, pour une artiste dont on peut dire émergente depuis 2 ans, là, elle confirme qu'il va falloir compter avec elle dans le paysage musical français dans les prochaines années.
Eh ben justement, émergente, elle était peu connue du grand public il y a 2 ans tout juste. Elle a à peine 22 ans. Qu'est-ce qui explique qu'elle ait tout explosé comme ça, si je peux parler en ces termes?
Eh bien, il y a, au-delà de la musique, il y a son tempérament. Je pense qu'elle incarne quelque chose voilà, d'une jeunesse française qui avance avec assurance. Et d'un point de vue musical, elle reflète assez bien l'une des tendances musicales de ces dernières années qui va vers l'hybridation, tout comme This Is qui a gagné la victoire de l'artiste masculin de l'année, bien a injecté du rap, de la pop, de la chanson française dans ses 2 derniers albums. Théodora, elle mélange aussi les genres. Il y a de l'électro, des influences afro-antillaises, du dancehall, du bouillon, etc. Donc elle reflète en fait l'une des tendances fortes de la création musicale actuelle.
Fabien Randan, vous avez évoqué This Is la peste, donc chez les hommes qui repart avec la victoire de meilleur artiste, qui a peut-être laissé aussi quelque chose de politique transparaître dans son discours. Je vais juste rappeler brièvement ce qu'il a dit en rappelant sa victoire précédente remportée il y a 20 ans. Il dit: tout cela disait moins de la musique que l'on faisait que de la place où on nous assignait, comme si nous n'étions pas des artistes singuliers, mais une couleur, une teinte, une ambiance. Comment est-ce qu'il faut recevoir ces mots? Je rappelle qu'il fait allusion à cette rubrique qui regroupait les artistes raga, rap, R&B, hip-hop, qui mélangeait tout ça.
Oui, c'était un peu tout comme quand on parle de musique urbaine, où finalement c'est un terme qui veut tout dire et rien dire. Voilà, c'est de la musique. Il y a des genres musicaux et le rock, dans un sens, peut être une musique urbaine aussi. Et effectivement, les victoires de la musique, ils ont fait changer le règlement. Donc maintenant, on concourt pour l'album de l'année et non pas l'album rap, l'album musique du monde, l'album musique électronique. Voilà, ça restreint finalement les chances de nomination, mais ça a aussi finalement plus peut-être de sens et de valeur, et ça évite justement, ça décolle des étiquettes. Et aujourd'hui, la création musicale française notamment, elle va vers cette tendance à décoller les étiquettes. On ne se cantonne pas à un genre, on peut aller chercher à droite, à gauche, même des collaborations avec d'autres artistes. D'ailleurs, This Is fait un succès avec un mélodrama qui a un featuring avec Théodora. Donc voilà, il y a une tendance plus large maintenant pour les artistes d'aller à la rencontre d'autres univers, de multiplier les influences et de les assumer.
Et je profite de votre présence, Fabien Randan, si vous voulez bien nous expliquer, et ceux qui découvrent l'événement, comment est-ce qu'on vote aux victoires de la musique? Qui décide de la remise de telle ou telle récompense?
Alors c'est un vote qui se fait en 2 tours. Il y a un premier tour avec, je n'ai pas le nombre de votants en tête, mais il y a des professionnels de la musique, des artistes, des journalistes musicaux, des programmateurs de salles, donc qui établissent la première liste des nominations. Et ensuite, une fois que ces nominations sont affinées, sont annoncées, c'est un deuxième jury beaucoup plus restreint, composé d'une 50aine de membres, je crois, avec là encore des artistes, des journalistes, des figures de l'industrie musicale, des programmateurs de salles, des tourneurs, qui donc établissent leur choix. Et la seule petite exception, c'est pour la chanson de l'année, où là, c'est le public qui vote. Et le prix a été décerné hier à Mauvais Garçon de Helena.
Merci beaucoup Fabien Randan. Merci d'avoir pris quelques instants pour répondre à nos questions sur France 24.
You point to the loose one, the most loose.
Demand for dentists has never been higher, and gaps in services are difficult to fill. Carl's toothache was so bad, he resorted to DIY dentistry.
I took a rim pull off a can of pop and I tried to dig it out with one of them.
You tried to take your own tooth out?
Yeah.
What happened?
I just messed it up and it went in and I had to go see an emergency dentist.
But it hurt that much you wanted to try yourself?
Yeah.
In Dewsbury, West Yorkshire, this mobile clinic's run by a charity for those who can't access NHS services.
No premolars and then that one molar that we just took before.
Roy's recovering from alcohol and drug addiction. He last saw a dentist 8 years ago.
At the moment, I've got probably no recognisable teeth at the back at all. The last one broke. That's the one what's broken now, and the top ones they're non-existent. So there's just roots at the top. So at the moment, I've got no real chewing teeth, nothing to chew with.
Volunteers say there's a 4 to 5 year wait for dentists in this area.
If there was more access to care, there'd be less problems that we'd see with patients, and we wouldn't be having to have vans set up multiple days, treating as many patients as we can. And you've seen the amount of people that are outside waiting to be seen. It's one of those things that we need it, and there's definitely a shortage of dentists right now.
Open nice and wide.
The charity Dentaid was set up to help patients overseas, but now spends more time running clinics closer to home. The British Dental Association told us underfunding and failed contracts have fuelled the crisis, with reform and real investment urgently needed. It's thought 13 million people in England alone are unable to access an NHS dentist. Children in the north have poorer oral health, with those from the most deprived communities twice as likely to have tooth decay than children living in affluent areas.
How many teeth do little kids have?
Early intervention's a government priority. At this primary, pupils are brushing up on their dental hygiene.
I did one session in Leeds and a kid had to leave the assembly in the session because of toothache. So it is affecting the learning and the health, the concentration. What you're eating and what you're drinking is just as important as brushing your teeth, okay?
What do you reckon is the biggest thing you learned today?
There's more sugar in things than you think there is, and you have to be careful. I also didn't really know that some very fizzy drinks have lots and lots of sugar in them, because it's a bit surprising how much there is in there.
It's very easy to forget your teeth, because I forgot to brush my teeth this morning.
Did you?
Yeah.
Are you going to brush them later?
Yes.
A Department of Health spokesperson said they're rolling out extra urgent dental appointments and reforming the dental contract to prioritise patients with the greatest need.
Yellow, green, red.
But many want bolder action. to stop the decline and decay of NHS dentistry. Laura Bundock, Sky News in West Yorkshire.
Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has delivered a stark warning at the Munich Security Conference. He said that every single power plant in Ukraine has been damaged by Russian attacks, calling Vladimir Putin a slave to war. Zelensky said that millions of Ukrainians are now facing heating cuts in the dead of winter. And as the battlefield continues to burn on, pressure is now rising on the diplomatic front, with Donald Trump urging for negotiations and also questions growing over how much Ukraine may be asked to give up in terms of territory. Our next report tells you more.
Odessa is once again counting the cost of Russia's war. A Shahed drone strike has left dozens of vehicles destroyed, cars burnt into twisted metal, buses reduced to shells, and even an ambulance damaged. Ukrainian officials say one person was killed and several others injured at a port site in the Black Sea region. And just a day later, more drones hit the area, damaging a residential building. Firefighters were seen battling flames on a burning roof. As these strikes continue, the political pressure is also intensifying. U.S. President Donald Trump has urged Zelensky to move quickly in negotiations with Moscow.
Well, Zelensky's going to have to get moving. Russia wants to make a deal, and Zelensky's going to have to get moving. Otherwise, he's going to miss a great opportunity. He has to move.
But Zelensky is warning against a peace that comes at Ukraine's expense. He says Ukraine is being asked too often to make concessions, while Russia is not. At Munich, Zelensky also spoke of a critical reality on the front lines. He said air defense support sometimes arrives only at the last moment, just before Russian attacks hit.
Honestly, one of the worst things a leader can hear in wartime is a report from the Air Force commander saying the air defense units are empty. And intelligence says a new massive attack may come in a day or two. Sometimes we manage to deliver new missiles for our Patriots or NASAMS just before an attack, and sometimes at the very last moment.
This came as the President of the European Parliament announced a €90 billion loan package for Ukraine, agreed in under 4 weeks. She called it a message that Europe is putting its money where its mouth is.
Next week, I will sign a €90 billion loan to Ukraine, agreed in under 4 weeks in an unprecedented speed. You might say it took us too long. We used to do things much slower before, but when push came to shove, we really put our money where our mouth is. And this is what we need to use as the strongest of message.
But with power plants damaged and cities under fire, the question remains, will Zelensky compromise or will Ukraine hold its line, even as the pressure to concede grows?
C'est un message d'apaisement que le secrétaire d'État américain Marco Rubio a voulu adresser aux Européens à Munich. Un an exactement après le discours incendiaire du vice-président J.D. Vance qui avait ébranlé la relation transatlantique, le chef de la diplomatie américaine a laissé entendre que Washington n'avait pas l'intention d'abandonner ses alliés européens.
Nous ne cherchons pas à diviser, mais à revitaliser l'Alliance atlantique. On ne veut pas que nos alliés soient faibles parce que cela nous rend nous plus faibles. On veut des alliés qui se défendent eux-mêmes pour qu'aucun ennemi ne soit tenté de tester notre force collective.
Dans un contexte de désengagement croissant des États-Unis au sein de l'OTAN, et alors que les relations transatlantiques traversent des turbulences sans précédent, comme l'a montré récemment la crise du Groenland, l'avenir de l'alliance historique entre les Européens et les États-Unis est au cœur des préoccupations. Et quelques jours après avoir affirmé que l'ordre mondial ancien n'existait plus, Marco Rubio a fait savoir que les États-Unis avaient l'intention de le restaurer, s'efforçant de rallier les Européens aux ambitions de Donald Trump.
Même si nous sommes prêts, si nécessaire, à mener cette tâche seuls, nous préférons et nous espérons la mener à bien avec vous, nos amis ici en Europe.
Autre sujet au cœur des discussions entre les Européens et les États-Unis, la guerre en Ukraine. La conférence de Munich se déroule en présence de Volodymyr Zelensky. Et alors que Washington continue de faire pression pour un accord de paix rapide, Marco Rubio a déclaré samedi ne pas savoir si la Russie était sérieuse dans sa volonté de mettre fin à la guerre contre l'Ukraine.
Je l'ai, je l'ai. Oh, magnifique.
Forcément, ça fait plaisir. Vous ne savez pas quel effort ça demande depuis plusieurs jours, tout simplement, pour préparer ce genre d'événement. On le sait, c'est juste être bon, ça ne suffit pas. Il faut que beaucoup de choses, en tout cas, se complètent. Et puis, comme on l'avait dit, tout simplement, des attitudes, de l'engagement, beaucoup de solidarité. Et puis après, accompagner dès les premières secondes avec le public, ça permet en tout cas, dans ces matchs de haut niveau, être capable de gêner n'importe qui.
S'il vous plaît, messieurs.
Welcome in, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're watching from today. I'm filming this on February 14th, and we have a big situation out of Cuba as the island, the communist dictatorship, has been hit by a mysterious and massive explosion at a critical key infrastructure target on the island. Information is flowing in. This comes as President Donald Trump is applying extreme pressure to the dictatorship in an attempt to remove the communist dictatorship from Cuba. We're seeing this a lot in Iran, a lot of mysterious explosions. Now we have video footage of a massive explosion absolutely rocking Cuba. So we're going to get into what we know as well as some other information about the situation in the ground on Cuba. Before we do, as always, please make sure to like and subscribe, totally free. Cost you guys absolutely nothing at all. Huge, huge boost to the channel. Comment with your thoughts below. Is this the CIA? Was it purely an accident? Who caused this massive explosion? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think the commies will fall? Hit the notification bell. All notifications turned on. You won't miss a thing. And then right here, Instagram, David_Hookstead, X, D Hookstead. That's where you can find me on social media. My DMs are wide open. Please reach out with whatever you got. Now, let's get into it. So I'm going to put this on the screen right here for you right away. So we know that the United States government has instituted essentially a de facto blockade, making sure oil cannot flow into Cuba. Reports indicate Cuba only has days or maybe 2 weeks of oil left before the whole island goes down, and then the government is in huge, huge issues. We're going to get into later in the video what Russia might do about this, so stick around for that. But this was news that came out on Friday, February 13th, saying massive fire erupts at the Nico Lopez oil refinery in Havana, one of Cuba's largest facilities, amid severe fuel shortages and the U.S. embargo. Cause unknown. Video by Rapid Report. So we're going to go back here. So real quick, before we hit play here, Cuba is desperate for oil. This facility is one of the only facilities that can take in oil, process oil, and then fuel the island. Now it's out of commission after this mysterious explosion, this mysterious fire hit the facility. Again, we do not know why as of this time. All we know is the facility has been hammered and appears to be destroyed by an unknown explosion of an unknown origin.
Mira pa eso.
See the massive fire.
Mira pa eso.
Smoke everywhere.
Algo grande pasó en la refinería.
Just
no,
an
está cogiendo una
incredible
fuerza terrible.
amount of damage.
Aumentó enormemente en apenas un minuto. Mira cómo ha aumentado eso.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So Cuba is on its last leg in the one facility it has that can process oil to keep the dictatorship in power. All of a sudden blows up for no known reason. No, we don't know why. No publicly stated reason. This is exactly what we're seeing in Iran. The exact same thing we're seeing in Iran. Iran is having all these mysterious gas explosions that just only seem to be hitting critical infrastructure or apartment buildings where military and government leaders live. Now the United States is sticking it to Cuba when it comes to oil, and the one facility they have that can process oil all of a sudden goes up in flames. Pretty odd, pretty strange, almost like an intelligence operation they didn't want fingerprints on. All right, we've got some more information here. The Nico Lopez refinery in Havana, Cuba, Cuba's largest and oldest, is on fire at the moment. This was the unloading point for oil sent by Mexico. It holds a level of critical importance. It's all over, friends. The end is near. So Mexico was originally going to send oil to Cuba. Then they decided not to after President Trump talked them down from it. And now it wouldn't even matter if they did, because the area that they would take it right here is no longer there. It has been blown up. It has been engulfed by flames. It is on fire. It is done. It is cooked. Now, this comes, President Trump shared this on Truth Social last month, back in January, saying Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba provided security services for the last two Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. Most of those Cubans are dead from last week's USA attack, and Venezuela doesn't need protection anymore from the thugs and extortionists who held them hostage for so many years. When he's talking about the dead Cubans, he's talking about Maduro's bodyguards who got absolutely destroyed by Delta Force. Venezuela now has the United States of America, the most powerful military in the world by far. To protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it is too late. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Shortly after that, the United States essentially instituted what can best be described as a de facto blockade around Cuba to make sure no oil would come in. We're like, there's no oil for you. You either agree to a deal, the government steps down, or we will literally just break the dictatorship in half. On that note, I'm going to put this up on the screen. So, despite the fact that we have a blockade, Russia has indicated that they are going to try to get oil to Cuba. They are going to try to break the U.S. blockade, break the back of the U.S., and get oil to Cuba. We do know mysterious Russian planes, possibly carrying weapons, have landed in Cuba. They could be carrying drones, air defense systems, because Cuba's air defenses are a joke. We saw what happened in Venezuela. They actually had real air defense systems, and it made no difference at the end of the day. We came in and absolutely crushed them. So Russia might be talking a big game, but I honestly don't know whether or not they will follow through. And then lastly here, I'm going to put this up on the screen for you. So this right here is Marco Rubio in Munich, in Germany, discussing the Cuban situation. Let's go ahead and watch what he had to say about the dictatorship in Cuba.
The fundamental problem Cuba has is it has no economy, and the people who are in charge of that country, in control of that country, they don't know how to improve the everyday life of their people without giving up power over sectors that they control. They want to control everything. They don't want the people of Cuba to control anything. So they don't know how to get themselves out of this. And to the extent that they've been offered opportunities to do it, they don't seem to be able to comprehend it or accept it in any ways. They would much rather be in charge of the country than allow it to prosper.
So there is Marco Rubio indicating that the dictatorship in Cuba has no interest in giving up power, and they are going to hang on to the bitter, ugly end instead of making a deal. And now they have lost the one place in the country where they can intake oil to keep the country up and running. This right now feels like the breaking point for Cuba. And I'm not saying the CIA did it. I'm not saying the United States did it. It could have been a total freak accident. But what little opportunity the Cubans had to import oil, to bring in fuel, to fuel the dictatorship, fuel the island, it's over. Remember, Cuba, what, a week or so ago, literally had to tell airlines we're out of jet fuel. We literally don't fly in here because we don't have jet fuel to fuel you up to fly out. That is how dire the situation is. The dictatorship should do the right thing, realizing that the game's over. They've got no more oil. They've got no more money. They have no support coming in other than Russia, and it's unclear if Russia will actually do it. It is over for Cuba. And this explosion, taking out their ability to refine and import oil, that's what this is. Their ability, even if someone wanted to send Cuba oil now, it wouldn't matter. They'd have no way to intake it. So this is, they got to wake up and realize the situation they're in. Cuba is cooked. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the CIA had done this, but I'm not saying they did because we don't know. All we know is there was a massive explosion, and now Cuba's ability to fuel itself is over. So it's going to be very interesting what happens in the next few days. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Totally free. Huge boost to the channel. Hit the notification bell. All notifications.
U.S. President Donald Trump's latest Iran pressure campaign is now running into resistance from a U.S. Navy's own top admiral, who is wary of stretching the USS Gerald R. Ford far beyond its planned deployment and straining both the ship and its crew. Trump has directed the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to leave its Caribbean mission and head toward the Middle East, escalating the U.S. show of force in response to surging tensions with Iran and stalled nuclear diplomacy. The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group is already operating under U.S. Central Command in waters near Iran, providing Washington with a powerful, continuously available carrier presence for any potential contingency in the region. Trump has openly framed the deployment of a second carrier as leverage, saying the added firepower is meant to pressure Tehran back to the table and force progress on a tougher nuclear agreement on U.S. terms. More than 4,000 sailors live and work aboard the Ford, a flagship best-in-show carrier that functions like a massive floating city, complete with tight routines, long watches, and a constant hum of flight deck operations at sea. On board, crew members rely on gyms, small shipboard stores, and an industrial-scale galley capable of turning out tens of thousands of meals a day, sustaining round-the-clock operations during months-long deployments. The Ford-class carrier is designed to host around 90 aircraft, including multiple squadrons of F/A-18 Super Hornet fighters, giving commanders a formidable mix of strike power, air defense, and surveillance options at sea. But Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Daryl Caudle has warned he would push back against extending the Ford yet again, arguing that endless deployments disrupt sailors' lives, break maintenance plans, and over-rely on carriers for every crisis. Chief of U.S. Naval Operations Admiral Daryl Caudle said, "I think the Ford, from its capability perspective, would be an invaluable option for any military thing the President wants to do. But if it requires an extension, it's going to get some pushback from the CNO. And I will see if there is something else I can do. I am a big non-fan of extensions. I'm a sailors first CNO. people want to have some type of certainty that they're going to do a 7-month deployment. The USS Gerald R. Ford left its home port of Norfolk in late June 2025 for a planned Mediterranean deployment, beginning what was supposed to be a routine cruise that has steadily grown longer and more complex over time. By redirecting the Ford and its strike group to the Middle East instead of allowing it to head home, the new orders stretched the deployment further, pushing the crew into an unusually long stretch away from families, training cycles, and scheduled ship maintenance. The Ford is expected to reach Middle Eastern waters roughly by late February, but officials have given no firm end date for the mission, leaving sailors facing an open-ended deployment with only rough guesses about when they might finally turn back toward Norfolk. Trump has mentioned a vague 1-month window, hinting that the carrier could remain on station for about that long. Yet he has tied any actual withdrawal to progress on a possible nuclear deal with Iran, making the schedule dependent on unpredictable high-stakes diplomacy. Admiral Daryl Caudle has cautioned that keeping the Ford out for more than 200 days under high-tempo, combat-ready conditions will carry a price to be paid, in the form of worn-down crews, mounting maintenance demands, and a carrier force that becomes harder to keep ready for future crises. This all unfolds against the tragic background of a 21-year-old Marine who fell overboard from a USS Iwo Jima in the Caribbean and was later declared dead, turning a high-profile mission into a story marked by personal loss and sacrifice. On February 11th, a U.S. guided missile destroyer struck a Navy supply ship during a tricky at-sea refueling maneuver, briefly jolting the replenishment mission and highlighting how dangerous close-quarters naval operations can be even far from any enemy fire. In a striking twist, the helicopter transporting captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro actually touched down on the Iwo Jima itself, turning the amphibious assault ship into a temporary holding platform before he was flown onward to the United States for detention in New York. After he went overboard, U.S. forces mounted a massive 72-hour search effort across the Caribbean Sea, and only once that round-the-clock mission failed to find him did commanders make the agonizing decision to declare the young Marine dead. The Marine Corps later confirmed that his loss was the first U.S. fatality linked to Operation Southern Spear, the Trump-ordered campaign targeting drug boats and regional threats in the Caribbean and nearby waters. U.S. Southern Command told the BBC that only 2 people suffered minor injuries in the refueling collision, and that both injured personnel were in stable condition after receiving prompt medical attention. After the impact, both the destroyer and the fast combat support ship remained seaworthy and quickly moved on under their own power, continuing their missions away from the collision site instead of needing to limp back to port. In a separate controversy, reports have claimed the U.S. Air Force began taking delivery of new F-35 fighters configured without working onboard radars, raising pointed questions about how those advanced jets could be safely used or trained with in the meantime. According to reporting cited from Defense Daily, the flow of radarless F-35s allegedly started around June 2025 with newer production lots, forcing crews to operate them using temporary ballast in the nose instead of the planned radar hardware. Outlets like Militani have linked the problem to delays and design issues with the latest AN/APG-85 radar upgrade, saying the sensor was pushed back in the production schedule and left aircraft arriving before the radar was actually ready to install. The U.S. Air Force, however, has publicly denied that it has accepted F-35 jets without radars, insisting that despite security-related secrecy, it has not fielded frontline fighters that would be effectively flying blind. Alongside carrier moves, Washington has positioned THAAD and Patriot air defense batteries and various armed drones at bases across the Middle East, building a layered shield meant to track and intercept missiles or drones launched by Iran or its partners. Iranian officials have repeatedly warned that any strike on their territory would bring swift retaliation against American bases in the region, threatening a broad regional clash that could pull in U.S. forces from Iraq to the Gulf. Tehran has signaled that the arrival of a second U.S. carrier near its shores would be viewed as a definite step towards war, framing the buildup not as routine deterrence but as a direct sign that Washington may be preparing for open conflict. On February 6th, U.S. and Iranian officials engaged in indirect nuclear talks in Oman that ended without any real breakthrough, exposing deep disagreements yet still keeping the door open for more negotiations in the coming days. Soon after the Oman talks, Trump welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and stressed that negotiations must continue, while again warning Tehran that the U.S. is ready to escalate pressure if it refuses tougher limits. Behind the scenes, Trump is actively weighing potential military options against Iran, leaving the Pentagon to plan for possible strikes even as diplomats try to keep fragile nuclear discussions alive. Trump has publicly warned that failing to reach an agreement on Iran's nuclear program would be very traumatic for the country, implying that renewed sanctions, military action, or both could follow if Tehran refuses his terms. On February 13th, Trump escalated his rhetoric further by saying that a change in power in Iran would be the best thing that could happen, signaling that his pressure campaign is aimed not just at a deal, but at weakening the current leadership in Tehran.
So we had a great visit at Fort Bragg. We saw a lot of heroes. And as you probably heard, we're going to be giving one particular person the Congressional Medal of Honor for what just took place in Venezuela. And met a lot of people right now. We were there for quite a while, and it was beautiful. These are great warriors. These are great patriots. And they're in very good shape, I will tell you that.
What can Iran do to avoid attack?
Give us the deal that they should have given us the first time. If they give us the right deal, we won't do that. But, you know, historically, they haven't done that. I will say they want to talk, but so far they do a lot of talking and no action. They've already started.
Do you want regime change in Iran?
Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen. For 47 years, they've been talking and talking and talking. In the meantime, we've lost a lot of lives while they talk, and legs blown off, arms blown off, faces blown off. It's been going on for a long time, so let's see what happens. In the meantime, we have tremendous power has arrived, and additional power, as you know, another carrier is going out shortly. So we'll see it out. If we could get it settled for once and for all, that would be good.
Who would you want to take over?
What?
Who would you want to take over?
I don't want to talk about that.
Mr. President, have you spoken to Secretary Duffy since Wednesday's incident?
No, he's doing a great job.
You said inside that the radionuclear sites have been totally obliterated. What's left to go after?
Well, you could get whatever the dust is down there. That's really the least of the mission. If we do it, that would be the least of the mission. But we, probably grab whatever's left. It has been obliterated, as you know.
Would you accept anything less than zero nuclear enrichment?
We don't want any enrichment.
Mr. President.
We don't want enrichment. Thank you very much, everybody.
A massive fire erupted in a warehouse at the Nico Lopez refinery complex in Cuba's capital, Havana. Cuba's Ministry of Energy and Mines said in an X post that the fire was brought under control and no injuries were reported. Videos circulating on social media showed huge smoke billowing out of the refinery. The blaze comes at a time when Cuba is facing an acute energy crisis due to the United States oil blockade. Donald Trump has threatened to slap tariffs on any nation providing Cuba with fuel, prompting Mexico to cut off shipments to the island.
Cuban leader Miguel Díaz-Canel said today that Cuba would be willing to engage in dialogue with the United States only without pressure, without preconditions, on equal footing and with respect for sovereignty. But his government is denying what President Trump said, that they are already holding talks. How would you respond to that?
I think the fact that the Cuban government is on its last leg and its country is about to collapse, they should be wise in their statements directed towards the President of the United States. But as I just reiterated, the President is always willing to engage in diplomacy, and I believe that's something that is taking place, in fact, with the Cuban government.
Cuban aviation authorities have told airlines that there isn't enough available gas for airplanes to refuel in Cuba, part of the strict energy rationing going into place as the Trump administration has effectively cut the island off from its fuel resources.
But if I get there, I'll work. And if I work and another PC shows up, I'm leaving. And if not, I'll have to get a machine. And if I don't have money, I'll stay home. It's over. There's nothing else. I won't give up. I won't give up.
2 Mexican Navy ships laden with humanitarian aid arrived in Cuba last week amid the energy crisis sparked by a U.S. blockade. The Mexican government has said that one ship is carrying some 536 tons of food, including milk, rice, beans, sardines, meat products, cookies, canned tuna, and vegetable oil, as well as personal hygiene items.
We have stated that Mexico is doing everything on its part to be able to generate a dialogue that allows, within the framework of the sovereignty of Cuba, because this is extremely important, because it is furthermore our fundamental principle, the self-determination of all peoples, to generate the necessary conditions for a truly peaceful dialogue, and also that Cuba, without any other nation imposing sanctions, can receive oil and its essential derivatives for its daily functioning and its everyday operation.
According to an Associated Press report, people in Havana woke up last Friday with fewer transportation options for going to work. The public transportation system on the island is now deeply affected by a fuel shortage that has forced buses to stay in the garage. Those who could afford it crowded into taxis, but many faced long walks, reminiscent of the so-called special period when the country's economy collapsed after the fall of the Soviet Union.
More sacrifice? Seriously. More sacrifice of what? There's nothing left to sacrifice. What's next? For example, I'm part of the military reserve until I'm 61. Because at 60, they still call you. What will you do? Are you going to use us as cannon fodder to stand us in front of an American soldier?
Last night, we managed to stay somewhere. One person, now more. Two people now stranded. One from Cotoro and I, who live in UTM due to the lack of regular bus service. I mean, there had been difficulties for quite some time, but there was always some bus available, you know, some possibility. Now, for the moment, there are none.
I think Russia closed flight because oil is finished and now blockade is from USA. Canada is also closed the door and so on. But I don't know, maybe many years ago we come back to Cuba again.
Cuba's beaches are still bathed in Caribbean sunshine. But behind the postcard views of Veradero, a deepening crisis is forcing tourists onto emergency flights home. Russian holidaymakers who arrived seeking warmth and escape are now cutting their vacations short. Two major Russian airlines have halted flights to the island, citing severe aviation fuel shortages. Moscow's Civil Aviation Authority confirmed that two major airlines are now repatriating citizens. Aeroflot announced it would dispatch 4 empty aircraft to Cuba to fly passengers home before suspending flights on February 24th. The move follows similar action from Air Canada, which earlier suspended service due to fuel shortages. The airline is sending empty southbound flights to retrieve roughly 3,000 stranded travelers before halting routes by mid-February.
I love you. I love you, Cuba.
But we had enough time to relax here and we enjoyed our stay. So now we are feeling, well, a bit sorry, but it's okay.
I think it's very sad and the Cuban people don't deserve this, but they need the tourism. It's what the people rely on, and I think everything that Donald Trump's doing is no good.
and right now there's no flights coming in. So unfortunately, we won't be back soon, but we will come back when everything's okay. And I hope that Cuba gets help. I hope Canada helps Cuba. That would be nice.
The disruption comes as a tightening U.S. energy embargo squeezes Cuba's already fragile economy. At the center of the escalating pressure is U.S. President Donald Trump, who recently signed an executive order imposing tariffs on countries that sell or provide oil to Cuba. The fallout has been swift. Cuban aviation authorities have warned airlines there is not enough available fuel for aircraft to refuel on the island. Strict rationing measures are now in force, affecting transportation, hospitals, schools, tourism, and even food production.
To visit, yes, they are battery operated because there is nothing else around here. It's how we manage things here. And so, little by little, we keep pushing forward. There's just no other option.
But if I get there, I'll work. And if I work and another problem comes, I'm gone. And if not, I'll have to get to work. And if I have no money, I'll stay home. That's it. There's nothing else. I won't give up. I won't give up.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has branded the measures an energy blockade. He says the restrictions are cutting Cuba off from critical fuel resources and deepening hardship across the country.
She's a friend, Maria. One particular plan we saw in the Council of Ministers was the government directive to tackle a severe fuel shortage. That theory of economic strangulation is present, that complex economic strangulation objective. We have always had to function amidst adversities, impositions, and pressures that are not imposed on anyone else in the world, and certainly not in such a very, very prolonged manner. Cuba is willing to engage in a dialogue with the United States, a dialogue on any of the topics that one wishes to discuss or debate. Under what conditions? Without pressure. Under pressure, it is not possible to engage in dialogue without preconditions, in a position of equality, in a position of profound respect for our sovereignty, for our independence, and for our self-determination.
How are we going to keep the children's classes without fuel? How will our vital system function without fuel? How will we distribute our food? How will we plant? How will we till? How will we prepare the land? How we go about collecting all the products? How we go about transporting ourselves around? Consequently, we'll take measures that, although they won't be permanent, they will, however, have to do with, at each and every moment, the availability of fuel that we have. These will be measures that are going to demand effort. They are going to demand, I know that people are going to say, but sacrifice again? Well, if we don't sacrifice ourselves and if we don't resist, what are we going to do? Are we just going to surrender? And we have always shared that the option of surrender is not an option for Cuba.
Tourism is Cuba's lifeline, yet visitor numbers have plunged nearly 70% since 2018, leaving the economy exposed and vulnerable. Russian and Canadian tourists represent a crucial share of that revenue. Canada is the island's second largest source of direct investment, particularly in mining and tourism sectors still struggling to recover from the pandemic slump. Fuel rationing may allow shorter regional flights to continue, but long-haul routes to Russia and Canada, pillars of Cuba's tourism engine, face mounting obstacles. How long the suspensions will last remains unclear. Authorities have offered no public timeline for restoring stable fuel supplies. As international carriers retreat, another nation is stepping forward. Meanwhile, 2 Mexican Navy ships have docked in Cuba, laden with humanitarian aid. The deliveries come amid intensifying energy rationing and rising diplomatic strain. Mexican government says one vessel carried more than 536 tons of food, including rice, beans, milk, sardines, meat products, and vegetable oil, alongside hygiene supplies. A second ship delivered over 277 tons of powdered milk. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum pledged further assistance, announcing plans to send an additional 1,500 tons of beans and powdered milk once the ships return. Mexico has also proposed mediation in talks between Cuba and the United States, signaling a potential diplomatic opening.
We have stated that Mexico is doing everything on its part to be able to generate a dialogue that allows within the framework of the sovereignty of Cuba. Because this is extremely important, because it is furthermore our fundamental principle, the self-determination of all people, to generate the necessary conditions for a truly peaceful dialogue. And also that Cuba, without any other nation imposing sanctions, can receive oil and its essential derivatives for its daily functioning and its everyday operations. We are sending different kinds of aid, different kinds of support. The ships are arriving today. As soon as they return, we're going to send more support of various kinds, and we are insisting that Mexico can act as the state, the nation that opens its doors for this dialogue to unfold. Evidently, it depends on the parties reaching an agreement.
For now, however, the island's immediate challenge is fuel. Without reliable energy supplies, airports falter, supply chains strain, and the tourism sector, once a symbol of resilience, faces renewed collapse. Sunseekers may still stroll along the sands of Veradero, but behind the scenes, an energy crisis is reshaping Cuba's skies, its economy, and its global ties.
Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox. It is 12:30 on the East Coast and 9:30 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours as we break down all of your top stories and live events from across the country and across the world. I do want to get you right back into some of the big stories that we are covering at this hour, and this is one that we've seen developing over the past several months as President Trump says that a regime change in Iran, quote, would be the best thing that could happen. His administration continues to weigh military action against Iran as nuclear talks are expected to continue next week. The president also confirming that he's deployed a second aircraft carrier group to the Middle East. Again, we do have all of this kind of developing here, and we heard from President Trump as he was asked about it just yesterday.
What can Iran do to avoid attack?
Give us the deal that they should have given us the first time. If they give us the right deal, we won't do that. But, you know, historically, they haven't done that. I will say they want to talk, but so far they do a lot of talking and no action. They've already started.
Do you want regime change in Iran?
Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen. For 47 years, they've been talking and talking and talking. In the meantime, we've lost a lot of lives while they talk, and legs blown off, arms blown off, faces blown off. It's been going on for a long time, so let's see what happens. In the meantime, we have tremendous power has arrived, and additional power, as you know, another carrier is going out shortly. So we'll see it how if we could get it settled for once and for all, that would be good.
All right, I do want to bring in a good friend of the show here. We have Jonathan Saye with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Iran program. Jonathan, as always, thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi, Josh. It's great to be with you again.
And of course, we talked about and just heard about President Trump speaking about this aircraft carrier, the second one that is now over.
Your segment explained it very well, right? What she said or what she didn't say doesn't matter. The fact that matters.
Barrett there, joining us from Brussels. He's an author and a film
Thanks
producer.
for having me.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news.
The allegations about Navalny being poisoned with frog venom are a disinformation campaign by the West, this being reported by the TASS news agency. The statement goes on to say there will be results of the analysis, there will be formulas of the substances, there will be a commentary. Without this, all the talks and statements are an information campaign aimed at diverting attention from the pressing problems of the West. Well, let's bring in Bill Browder, the author of Red Notice, How I Became Putin's #1 enemy. He's in Munich for us at that security conference. Good to see you. Perhaps we can start by getting your reaction to what the Kremlin has just said, that these allegations are quite simply a disinformation campaign by the West, who has more pressing problems.
Well, whenever the Kremlin denies something, you know it's probably true. I mean, I was here 2 years ago at the Munich Security Conference on this exact day when Alexei Navalny was killed. We all knew that Vladimir Putin had him killed. But what this information that's come out today confirms is not just, as Yulia Navalny said, not just speculation, but proof. And the proof, not just that Putin killed Alexei Navalny, but that Putin used some highly sophisticated poison. And furthermore, this is the second time they've tried to kill Alexei Navalny with poison. The first time they didn't succeed. It was in Siberia with Novichok. And now the second time they succeeded with this rare Ecuadorian frog poison. These are barbaric people, they're murderers, and we should see them for who they are.
And why do you think they chose to use this toxin, this very strange, rare poison? Given that he was in prison already, they could have used any other means, couldn't they, that were much simpler and been able to cover it up probably a little more easily?
Well, probably they wanted to be caught. I mean, Putin is always talking out of both sides of his mouth. On one side, he says, we didn't do it, it's had nothing to do with us. And on the other side, he says, look at how sophisticated the poisons we use are, and if you get in our way, we're going to poison you too. It's a very effective strategy. Most people get scared when they see him using these highly sophisticated poisons. It's certainly a way of it's like terror. You know, it's like terrorizing not just his own people, but anyone who stands against him anywhere in the world. And the fact that they have access to this poison, that they've come up with it. Apparently, it's very difficult to come up with this poison. It's not, you can't just order it online or cook it up in your kitchen, but you have to get it from these frogs in Ecuador, which are endangered species. All points to the security services being involved, and all points to a highly sophisticated state-run operation.
Yeah, I mean, some talk that maybe it could have been reproduced in a lab, but either way, it's certainly vindication for Navalny's wife, isn't it? Because she's been saying this for, as you say, the last 2 years.
Well, anybody who knows Vladimir Putin knows that Alexei Navalny was a major political threat, that Vladimir Putin hates him. Vladimir Putin murders his political opponents, is not the first one, it won't be the last one. And so it was kind of obvious, but to have some kind of scientific proof, I think really does help. And I think it helps right now, because here we are in a situation where there are certain people that are giving Putin some benefit of the doubt, that are trying to reset relations, trying to negotiate with his emissaries. And we should all remember that Putin is a murderer. He's an indicted war criminal. And to be talking to a person like that, you're talking to one of the worst types of people in the world.
Yeah, do you think this will put pressure on those people that perhaps give Putin the benefit of the doubt? Do you think that is why it's been announced on this platform at the Munich Security Conference?
Well, I suspect the reason it's been announced at the Munich Security Conference was because that's where this was the moment and the place in which Yulia Navalny was 2 years ago when the news came through that Alexei was killed. But it certainly has the after effect for anybody who's, for the public to see who Vladimir Putin really is at this moment when Putin is not agreeing to ceasefires in Ukraine and where there are some people in the White House that are giving Putin the benefit of the doubt, and he should not be given the benefit of the doubt. He's a very evil man who orders the killing of the most popular opposition politician in Russia, and I think that says everything.
It's been reported as a violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention. Do you think anyone will be brought to justice as a result of this?
Well, I think that in the end, Putin will be brought to justice for everything he's done. I think that he will see justice one way or another, whether it's for this in The Hague or in some other way. But these dictators generally don't have comfortable retirements.
Navalny's wife in the past has accused unnamed Western countries of keeping quiet over the real cause of her husband's death. She said, I think, this was due to political considerations. What do you think has changed, if anything?
Well, I'm not sure who is keeping quiet about his death. I'm not sure where that comes from, but you know, there probably were some people that are, you know, trying to reset relations with Russia and don't want to rock the boat. But you can't hide the truth. And the truth is that Putin killed Alexei Navalny. He killed him with this rare toxic poison, and that it should be, you know, the world should know it everywhere in the world, and we have to understand that that's who we're dealing with when we're talking about Vladimir Putin.
We've also heard from the Russian embassy in the last few moments here in the UK. They've issued the following statement: the goal of this ridiculous circus performance is transparent, to stoke waning anti-Russian sentiment in Western society. If there's no pretext, they laboriously invent one. This isn't a quest for justice, but a mockery of the dead. Even after the death of a Russian citizen, London and European capitals cannot give him peace, which speaks volumes about the instigators of this campaign. Again, your reaction to that, Bill Browder?
I mean, Russia is bombing and killing civilians every day in Ukraine. They've killed hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. This is an unprovoked war of aggression. They've killed all sorts of Russian dissidents and opposition people like Alexei Navalny. For them to say that is just laughable. It's just the height of cynicism. It's just truly evil for them to be saying that type of thing in the context of what's going on in Ukraine and around the world.
Yeah, and just while we have you, it is, of course, 4 years now since this war has been grinding on, a fourth desperate winter for the Ukrainian people. Zelensky is where you are. He's been speaking at the security conference today. What are your thoughts moving forward as those talks are set to resume?
I don't believe that Putin has any intention of agreeing peace. If anything, he's getting more aggressive. It's not in the Russian nature to back down and to compromise. I think these talks are just a way of keeping Trump off his back. It's a way of saying for him to say to Trump, you know, if you do any more sanctions, you're going to upset these delicate peace negotiations. I don't think there's going to be any peace. I don't think he has any intention of doing peace. And you can see that by, you know, in the middle of these negotiations, he continues his bombing campaign on Ukrainian civilians, which is completely criminal and it's the act of a terrorist, not the act of a head of state.
We really appreciate your thoughts this evening, especially your instant reaction to those words from Russia. Bill Browder, author of Red Notice: How I Became Putin's #1 Enemy. Thank you very much.
Bienvenue à vous tous et merci d'être avec nous pour cette émission avec Judith sur YouTube Première de France 24 et toutes les plateformes de podcast. Mes invités reviennent sur leur parcours, les changements dans leur vie, les circonstances de ces changements et leurs conséquences. Bonjour Karine Lacombe.
Bonjour.
Vous êtes professeure de médecine, chef de service des maladies infectieuses et tropicales à l'hôpital Saint-Antoine à Paris depuis
Iran's Foreign Minister
Priority
Abbas
flash.
Araghchi has sharply
Thumbs up
criticized
like
the
the
Munich
stream
Security
bell follow
Conference,
for update
accusing
satellite
European
antenna
powers
track
of
the
losing
intel.
influence in negotiations over Tehran's nuclear program. Speaking in a post on the social media platform X on Saturday, Araghchi said the annual security gathering had turned into the Munich circus when it comes to Iran, blaming the European Union and Germany for what he described as ineffective regional policies. The remarks came as the 62nd Munich Security Conference opened on Friday, drawing more than 60 heads of state and government alongside roughly 100 foreign and defense ministers. On the sidelines of the conference, Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's former monarch, alleged that U.S. military intervention could help accelerate political change inside Iran and claimed Washington should avoid prolonged negotiations with Tehran over a nuclear deal. It's a matter of time. We are hoping that this attack will expedite the process and the people can be finally back in the streets and take it all the way to the ultimate regime's downfall, said Pahlavi, who lives in the United States and has remained outside Iran since the 1979 Iranian Revolution that toppled his father, the Shah. His remarks highlight the widening divide between Iran's current leadership and exiled opposition figures over the future direction of the country, as international discussions over the nuclear file and regional tensions continue. Iran's opposition remains deeply divided among competing groups and ideological factions, including monarchists aligned with Pahlavi, and maintains only a limited organized presence within the Islamic Republic.
Priority flash. Thumbs up like the stream bell follow for updates satellite antenna track the intel.
The UN's financial strain is a chance to rethink its structure, cut inefficiencies, and empower local work that delivers more impact. The UN is far from ideal. The Secretariat and agency headquarters are massive bureaucracies. The General Assembly is widely derided as a talk shop, and the Security Council is an arena for great powers to advance their national interests. Reports on the impact of the UN's potential collapse have focused more on the maintenance of its headquarters than on where the institution's work is needed most. UN funding runs on two modalities: regular program funding from member states, and extra budgetary funding. The latter is project-specific and comes from donors, often responding to project